This is a story about the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we live out in the world, and the space between those two. It's about how we love, how we lose, and how we recover, or not, through the stories we make up in our heads. I'm Robin Rice, and this is also my story. Chapter 22. Many Lives, Many Stories. Time is a story, and also time is the place where all stories must live. So there's a lot to think about where time is concerned. Once upon a time, past tense, future tense, present tense, so tense. Our stories about the mysteries of life may require us to think in a way that transcends time, but that is also a reference to time. The timelessness in opposition to time. Our sense of time moving fast or slow tells us something about how much we are enjoying the string of present moments we are in. We have good times and bad times, boring times, climactic times. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the okay of times. Through the keeping of time, we have seasons in which our life is drawn and quartered, then quartered again and again, down to the nanosecond. Fun fact, at 1/billionth of a second, a nanosecond is smaller than a millisecond and a microsecond, but larger than a picosecond, femtosecond, attosecond, or zeptosecond. Anyway, however many zeptoseconds we have in one life, we feel the urgency of time, that it will run out. However much we may not wish to think about it, we will all ultimately, eventually, be out of time, at least materially dead. To be less morbid, I find it interesting that our capacity to get into flow states, which is hallmarked by the sensation of time seeming to escape our awareness, produces strikingly better work. Time, then, I have often thought, must be the devil himself, weighing us down, making us think it's real. Our age-defying creams tell us just how frightened we are of time passing. Yet wisdom requires time. Fine wine, too. Flowers bloom only after having once been seeds left to another day. Seasoning may need an overnight, ask any cook. Letting it sit is the art form that contrasts the 2-minute spice rub. Marriages that last the tests of time are highly regarded, regardless of the actual tone and tenor of the relationship. Things spoil in time, too. A good writer steps outside of time to write, yet must write within the constructs of time. God, I wish this damn book would finish itself so I could move on. Seriously, you have no idea. I wrote my first several books of fiction in the first person, present tense, in order to create an immediacy to the work. It was the only way I could think of to get at the feeling I was going for, that of, you are here and this is now. Falling in love can take ages or happen in an instant, or take years and years of like before tipping into love. I imagine time and love, as spirits or gods or archetypes at least, must have a few good chuckles at our expense, watching how we think we can control either one. We live in the past through our memory function and the future through our imagination. In both, we are separate from our experience of the now. Virtually any deeper spiritual tradition espouses, in one way or another, that we are to be present, that the present moment is where the action is. But to be truly present, we will have to step out of time, which takes a kind of spiritual aptitude most of us were probably not born with. The problem is, things move too fast to keep up with the present moment. In conversations, seconds go by and we are still trying to get our mouths to move in order to say what we were planning to say when we first opened our mouths. We can have a multitude of instant thoughts about what someone else is saying, yet waiting until they finish before we can begin, we forget the whole idea. Thinking right now about this sentence, then typing, already more seconds have passed. Damn, present moment? What's that? Within this thing we call time, somewhere in our hearts and minds, we layer story upon story. We rack up memories, some of us are real hoarders, and from these we create a running narrative that, in time, becomes a solidified identity. That's just who I am, we say. From there, the narrative extends into the future as extrapolations from what has been shoved onto what we expect. In this way, the same us travels through time from birth to death. The beauty wail of a healthy baby pulled from the womb to the last gasping gurgle of the spirit leaving the body. It's all about time. That's just how it works. Or does it? More to the point, does it have to? It's worth thinking about. Well, I find it worth thinking about. Anyway, with all this hullabaloo, it can be difficult to imagine that our story might need to extend beyond this one lifetime to others. Other lives before, other lives to come, spanning a stretch of time that goes who knows how far backward and forward. Some of the world's most popular religions suggest that's exactly how it works. A same soul that inhabits many unique selves over many lifetimes, one life at a time, like a tree growing and dropping leaves every year. The idea might have only been designed to keep us karmically in check, another version of the be good now for a prize in a later life. But what if there is something real to it? To past lives, to future lives? I was about to find out, or at least try to. Enter the labyrinth. At the time of my awakening, the New Age was wild with the concept of multiple lifetimes, especially with the ever-growing popularity of the late 80s book, Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. Who could not relate to that feeling of, I've known you before, when we meet someone with a stronger pull than we feel with others? What well-traveled person has not had the sensation of discovering that a completely foreign place feels more like home than the place we grew up in? So romantic, so meaningful, so worthy of pursuit. At minimum, it's great story drama, I promise you that. The idea was foreign to me, but upon reflection, it made sense. Why would the soul that is me or you arrive at birth and cease to exist at death? Seems like a waste of all those growth opportunities. Like a video game you get only one shot at, with no room to improve. On the other hand, if time was an illusion, as I had discovered under the tree as a young person, the premise of any kind of past didn't make sense. No time, no past. Also, I knew little of this then, but today I would and have put the idea to a quantum physicist. If you're going to open up the past life can of worms, you've got to entertain parallel realities, multiple simultaneous selves, and more. Stories like that really throw us because we're accustomed to a beginning, a middle, and an end, even if we don't think about it much. Most of us like our stories in that format, thank you very much. But none of this was the problem. Not the problem I was having with exploring my potential past lives back then. No, straight up, it was looking stupid that made the whole idea feel risky to me. I'd heard stories of people who really thought they were Cleopatra, Marcus Aurelius. I even met a man who was utterly sincere about the truth that he was Jesus, the Christ, reincarnated. It all sounded a little loony to me. Now I was going to toss my hat into that ridiculous pile of projected hokey pokey? No, thank you. Things were weird enough already. But I had committed to explore all that I could find, and a past life regression was next on the list. Let me be a simple shaman from some unknown nomadic Siberian desert, I thought as I booked an appointment. Maybe a reindeer herder or something like that. It was not to be so. Driving to my appointment, I reminded myself that Sue had mentioned past lives in a few of the shamanic journeys she'd done for me. Those felt like a thread to follow, at least. I had read all the books that were available on the topic back then, and so I felt plenty primed. If I happen to meet the love of my life in the waiting room, all the better. If you know that inside joke, you read Many Lives, Many Masters. In order to give myself the best shot at it, I had searched for someone to regress me who seemed at least sane, hopefully unbiased and definitely experienced. Not too out there, if that was possible. For sure, I wanted the best I could find, even if I had no idea how to judge that. Fortunately, the head of the Association of Regressionists, yes, there was actually an association, another who knew for me, lived and worked less than an hour away from my home. How fortuitous, auspicious even, how in line with everything else unfolding at my feet. As I approached her very basic, everyday-looking office building, I noted that I was less afraid of what I would find than I was afraid I wouldn't find anything. So already I was hoping, bought in expectation mode. Not a good sign. I would have failed miserably as a scientist. As it turns out, Annie was mature, professional, warm and calm. She had been practicing for more than a decade and was trained by Brian Weiss himself. She felt confident that healing could happen when a past life was discovered and worked through. Wasn't that why I was there? I assured myself that if shamanic healing was real, this could not be too far left of center. As I listened to her explain what she had already explained over the phone, I had to wonder, what might my life have been like if I'd explored any of this a decade before, or two? How much time had I lost? And why would I have been allowed to sleep so deeply through my early life? Would the sleeping giant within me show up in this trip? Explain a few things? Wouldn't that be nice? I again remembered my first words upon awakening. Took you long enough. I can't believe you let me sleep for 35 years. Why was it exactly that they, or he or she or who knows what, waited so long? What was the purpose? What good had it done? I'd like to know more about that, too. Finally, she finished talking and directed me to lay back in the soft lazy-boy recliner. Annie's tiny office was on the interior of the building, making it quiet. A low-watt nightlight sat on her desk, which was covered with a cream-colored lace fabric. She turned off the overhead lights, placed a tape recorder between us so that I might take home the recording, and asked me to find a safe place in nature, real or imagined, which I would be able to retreat to any time things got intense. I was not afraid of anything intense because I still doubted I would go anywhere at all. But I didn't say that. This was her profession. I wanted to respect it. She had me relax my body, hair to toes, in painstakingly slow detail. Each body part got a moment to be front of mind and then received the suggestion to become heavy and move out of my direct awareness. Annie's voice was easy to listen to, like Bell Ruth's that day of the awakening, though more husky and deep. When she asked if I had found my safe place, I nodded. The visuals were vivid and immediate. I saw a garden with rolling hills beyond it and the sea beyond that. Without warning, without instruction, without even knowing it was time to travel, or what she had said to get me there, I was in a war zone. Annie instructed me to look at my hands to know my gender. I'm a man. My hands are dripping in blood soaked in it. I looked up and around. There's blood everywhere. "Why are you there?" she asked. My heart pounded. Young boys, young men, dead. Hundreds, thousands. I'm responsible, I said, suddenly overwhelmed with emotion. "Why are you responsible?" I agreed. I signed the papers. I think I'm in charge. "Where are you?" I looked around. "Ireland," I said, like it was home, like it had always been home. Some more lucid part of me was somewhere back in Annie's room, registering that I'd never been to Ireland, even though I was of the Dawson family and of Irish descent. I tried to let that me go, as Annie had instructed. "Why did you sign the papers?" They didn't read the other papers I wrote. I tried to tell them, but they didn't care. I had to do something, but not this. I should never have allowed this. I felt myself looking to my left and right, frantically behind closed eyes. Why do you need to see this? This is why I'm a writer in this life. They have to read me. They have to understand. I was frantic, shifting in the chair, left to right, as if it would allow me to see more. You're safe, she insisted, calming me. It's time to pull away from this scene and move to another moment in time, but stay in this lifetime. She waited a moment. Where are you now? In the countryside. Green hills. I'm riding in a carriage. Who are you with? My true love, the love of my life. She adores me. I adore her. We've been together through it all. Your wife? No, I'm married to someone else. The me back there thought of my most passionate lover, that older man, but I couldn't remember his name. It was as if that part of my brain that remembered such things was not available to me. Again, I let it go, returning to the scene, the great flood of love I felt. Tell me more about your life, she urged. I followed her words like a beam of light, pointing me toward where I was meant to go. I saw myself in the carriage, felt the time was at least 100 years before. The bright green of Ireland was so beautiful, as was the sea. Love, romance, water, they went together for me. I focused on what I might know about me in that life. I'm a lawyer, but I never went to law school. I shouldn't have the position I do. I didn't get it the normal way. What position is that? Prime Minister, I said. Immediately, I was self-conscious to claim such a title, so another part of me, the worrying part, came online to think about it. But I don't think they have those in Ireland, do they? I don't know Irish history or politics. I barely learned it in the U.S. Stay with this scene, Annie urged. Just let it unfold. Tell me what you do know. You were the Prime Minister. That's what I got, too. Something in me felt good that she'd gotten it even before I said it. It relaxed my need to be right or wrong about it. I'm so happy here with her. She's so fun. We have so much fun. Do you know your name? I shook my head, scanning any part of me that might remember. Nothing came. I was fixated on the woman with me. Do you know your lover's name? Annie asked. I call her Kat. She's my everything. She lights me up. Look into her eyes. Do you know those eyes from this lifetime? I look, but see nothing. No one. No. It felt like it had felt with that lover I had before, the one that was married. What was his name? I still couldn't remember. But it wasn't him. It just felt similar. Maybe because of the marriage, the triangle? I was losing ground again. The scene is fading, I said. Is there anything else you need to know from this lifetime? I have to continue to write. I owe Ireland and my son. Your son? From that life or from this life? I don't know, I said. There's just blood again. So much blood. The green is turning red everywhere. It's all I can see. All right. You can let go of that lifetime now, Robin. Take a few breaths. With that instruction, the scene fully faded from my view. My hands were bloodless, but I would never forget the look of them, how they dripped bright red. Annie had me travel to another lifetime, which was also easy to find. As with a shamanic journey, seeing in this place was easy for me. I was male again, this time a Tibetan monk, on my deathbed, or rather mat. Most everyone had left me alone, but I had a young attendant. I felt I'd done well in my life and felt I could die peacefully. I wasn't afraid. I knew that they knew what to do when I died. There was a protocol they would follow. I remembered all my teachings ingrained since a child. This is why I understand the Buddhist teachings. I'm from Tibet, I told Annie. That's why I'm drawn to the Dalai Lama. I should go see him. What do you want to remember from this life? She asked me. I was a good monk. Nothing special like all the monks, but I loved my tradition. It feels like home. That sounds nice. Now move to the moment of your death. What happens? I am expecting a good next life, so I'm not afraid at all. Many are near me now, helping me have a good death. I'm dying peacefully, quietly. Do you recognize anyone? Look into their eyes. No, but I love them all. Now I'm leaving my body. I'm above them. My younger attendant loved me, and so he's wet in the eyes. They're mostly happy tears. He's happy for my liberation. Death is just another part of life here. He knows that because I taught him. It's a beautiful ending. Is there anything else you want to remember from this life? That I've been a simple monk and I did it well, so I don't have to follow a religion in this lifetime. It's not my path. I know simplicity. I remember it. I respect it. Anything else? If I remember this moment when I die in this lifetime, I won't be afraid. I know how to go peacefully and on purpose. It's not the end, just a transition. That's wonderful, she said, then moved me to a final scene. I was in a lighthouse. Annie asked me to describe my surroundings. I'm inside, alone. The ladder rope to climb down is sitting next to me. I came here, pulled it up, and hid myself. They can't get to me unless I come down. I've been up here a long time. I'm starving to death. Weak. She asked me again to look at my hands to learn more about myself. It's hard to tell by my hands. I'm skin and bones. But I know I'm a man. Maybe 30 years old? I don't know. I'm waiting to die. Why are you seeing this lifetime? She asked me. I stole something. They were going to punish me severely. I'd be handicapped and an outsider to our village life forever. I couldn't face it. So I climbed up here and pulled the ladder up after me so they can't get up. I didn't know I'd starve myself to death before going back down. I didn't think it through. But I can't get up the courage to go back. They thought they could wait me out, but I'm stubborn and now it's too late. I'm about to die. What did you learn from this? To never run from consequences. I always face up to things right away. I own up to what I've done and can't stand to wait for punishment that's going to come. I have to move forward to get out of the feeling of pending doom as fast as I can. Anything else? This is where my fear of not having enough food comes from. I'm a hoarder of food, always afraid it will run out. This is such a horrible way to die. Do you want to proceed to your moment of death? No, this is enough for today. Annie brought me back. We discussed each life. I was still embarrassed to have remembered having been a prime minister, but it was so real. A man in love, but responsible for all that blood. Someone who cheated on his wife. I mean, who wanted to be that man? She suggested I sit with it and said that all of my memories felt true to her. I had to admit, none of the lives I'd seen felt like I was making it up. It was strange as a sensation, with each one different, but not untrue. It was more like I'd been starring in a home movie taken in my childhood, then watching it years later. But was that me? I felt the sense of mine in my chest, but I didn't recognize any faces in any of the lives. I had complete recognition of the emotions and the lessons learned, the sense of recognition of the place and relationships, just not specific people. Annie said it sometimes happens that way. I left with my cassette tape, but turns out it didn't help. Instead, I found the oddest thing when I got home. Despite the recorder being closer to me than Annie, and even though you could hear her clearly every time she spoke, along with a minimal amount of white noise in the background, every time I spoke, every time, the tape was completely blank. No voice, no white noise, nothing. Crazy, impossible. The tape blanked when I spoke, but not Annie? What was it? Interference from the other side? What else could it have been? I wanted to listen again, but I would have to remember everything, and so I wrote out as much as I could recall. There were so many more details about the Prime Minister than I could remember. I described the green, hilly grass of Ireland and the long road by the water we were traveling. I can still see it in my mind's eye to this day. My lover, Cat, was so special to me. And what of the blood on my hands? I was sure it wasn't a metaphor. If this past life was real, I did indeed have the blood of countless men on my hands. I did, in fact, kill people. What does anyone do with that kind of guilt? And if past lives are all about karma, could that much karma ever be paid down? I searched Irish politics and yet had no idea what war from what time frame I was looking for. Turns out Ireland's history is nothing but war. I did discover that there was no prime minister in Irish politics, as I had thought, so how accurate could it have been anyway? I decided to let the past lives go, assuming they were likely more symbolic than real, a vivid and beautiful rendering of the storyteller within me. Turns out it wasn't so easy. The monk in me pushed me to see the Tibetan story continue. The man in the lighthouse kept asking for food, even when I was not hungry, to soothe his starvation story. The man in Ireland especially had ideas of his own. Now awakened, he was not about to go back to sleep, though his story would take decades to fully play out, and, in fact, as yet, is still playing out as I write. At that moment, though, my shamanic life was calling. Of all the stories, all the memories, all the facts and fictions falling in on me, I somehow just knew that that was the thread to follow. Besides, it gave me a role, something to actually do besides read, think, and continue to gaze at my very own divine navel, which I was getting very tired of. For once, my story was solidifying, becoming real, pointing in a direction, and outlining a path. I was more than ready to get to it. Enter your labyrinth at BeWhoYouAre.com.